Michigan State heads on the road and is taking on Nico Medved and the Minnesota Golden Gophers, a team that's 12-2, recently been losing a ton of really close games. Just lost by 2 against Penn State, lost in overtime to Ohio State not too long ago, also lost a close game against Wisconsin. Did get blown out by Nebraska, but obviously this is a really good Nebraska team, so no one's necessarily super surprised by that. But this is Nico's first year at the helm for Minnesota. I think he's done a pretty good job so far. There really seems to be a little bit of a switch up for him, and that's been going a little bit small. And we've seen MSU have a few issues with that in the past. If you want one example, that Rutgers game. Rutgers went pretty small, and there's times where Carson Cooper and just the defense overall wasn't able to get stops. Now, obviously, when you end up going small, that obviously plays a little bit into a factor of what Michigan State wants to do, and that is rebound. Michigan State's one of the best rebounding, especially offensive rebounding teams in the country, and when you talk about going small, you really have to mention a guy in Jalen Cracker Johnson. He averages 13.4 points a game. He's been really a key contributor for this Minnesota offense, especially when it comes to scoring. You also have Kate Tyson. He's a little bit bigger of a guard. I believe he is. I think he's like 6'7". He's averaging almost 20 points a game. Shoots 38% from three, so a pretty good three-point shooter. Not like a super dangerous three-point shooter, but enough to obviously respect him. He's also a guy that is really good at the free throw line, 81%. He's a guy that's 50% from the field. He does rebound a little bit, does have a few assists, does have almost 2 turnovers a game. That is one thing that Minnesota actually does decently well. They do have some issues at times, but 11 turnovers on average in a game. That's one thing that Michigan State, when they've had games that they've lost or really been close with, it's been a turnover battle for Michigan State. Have they been able to win it? They were really not good against Michigan when it comes to turnovers. That's going to be a key component of this. And this is obviously a road game for Michigan State, and no matter who you play on the road, it's truly going to be a difficult test. And we've seen Michigan State on the road against one of the worst teams, and Rutgers almost lose. Now, obviously, it's a little bit of a different atmosphere, in my opinion, but Michigan State has had moments where they've really struggled at Minnesota. So this is going to be a game that I think Michigan State's obviously going to have to come prepared. They're going to really have to kind of get themselves up, especially after losing to Michigan at home. And it's not just Tyson, it's not just Cracker Johnson. You also have a guy in Langston Reynolds, averages 11 points per game. He's also a guy that not going to shoot a ton of three. He's not going to be very efficient from three, 25.9% from three. But this is a team that shoots 32.7% from three. This is not going to be the best three-point shooting team that you're going to face this year. This is not a very good three-point shooting team whatsoever. Now, Michigan State, recently coming off of their loss to Michigan, they only shot 17% from three. You're going to have to really depend on defense in this one. You're really going to have to see how Michigan State responds in this one, especially to a little bit of a smaller lineup. It's going to be interesting, though, because you have Carson Cooper. I think he's great defensively. The one time they've gone small, he struggled at times. Now, do I think Minnesota kind of has a different approach? I think Minnesota is maybe not as good at Rutgers at that position. Possibly, but I also think you're going to really truly depend on a guy in Jackson Kohler. Jackson Kohler played way too many minutes. Tom Izzo specifically said that in his last press conference. Jackson Kohler's been a little bit off. Michigan State really truly needs Jackson Kohler. Also, Michigan State sounds like they're going to tweak a little bit of the lineups as well, at least according to Tom Izzo. I would love to see Jordan Scott play in this game, especially because, again, they do go a little bit small when it comes to their front court, but you have a guy in Kate Tyson that is a guard that is 6'7". Like, you really truly need kind of a little bit of a taller two. I also think Colton Carr is obviously going to start this game, so I would love to see Jordan Scott start this game for Michigan State. I think MSU needs to make a change. I think Divine Ugochukwu needs to come off the bench at this point against a Minnesota team that has a little bit of size when it comes to Kate Tyson. You also have to mention a guy, like I mentioned, Langston Reynolds, 6'4" as well. They do have a little bit of a size in the front court. Point guard Isaiah Asmoa, 6'3". There's a little bit of size there. I think MSU is going to really need to kind of address that going forward, but should be an interesting game. I think MSU is going to obviously need to come and play well. I think they're going to need to rebound. I don't think they can let that Michigan game spiral into another bad performance, because this is a Minnesota team that has played some good competitive games. Wisconsin almost beat them by 4. Now, the one thing is, when you have a team in Minnesota that goes up against the top teams in the Big Ten, they've gotten absolutely blown out. And I think Michigan State needs to find a way to comfortably win this game, or at least look more competitive, or at least look like they truly dominate from the get-go, to truly kind of say, hey, that Michigan game was a little bit of a change. That Michigan game was not us. And I think getting out to a fast start, especially in the first half, is going to be really, really important for MSU. And we've seen Tom Izzo kind of welcome in new head coaches to the Big Ten. He's been very successful at doing that. I think at the end of the day, Michigan State will be ready for this one. I think they're going to play really hard. And I think with a little bit of a lineup change, a little bit of a different approach, I think adding in a Jordan Scott, that gives a little bit more comfort to Tom Izzo. I think that's going to be maybe a change that Michigan State truly needs, and maybe it's going to be really kind of the part of a jump start of Michigan State offensively when it comes to the half-court offense, which has been really a difficult time for Michigan State. They've been really grinding at that, and that's another thing that I would love to see MSU do a little bit different in this one. But outside of that, I do think MSU wins this game. I think MSU is the better team. I think MSU is the better shooting team. I think even though this is on the road, MSU is going to be able to get a bounce back performance. And I think it's because MSU is going to figure out a little bit of how to play with a smallest type team when it comes to the front court. And when it comes to the back court, I think MSU is going to have Jeremy Fears guarding their best guy. I think Jordan Scott's going to be starting. I think Cohen Carr has been really good defensively for the most part. I do think he struggled a little bit against Yaxel, but he's not going to be going up against the Yaxel in this game. And I think at the end of the day, MSU ends up winning this game on the road. But yeah, if you enjoyed this, feel free to like, subscribe, comment, all that kind of stuff. Thank you for tuning in this one. I'll obviously recap this game after it happens. Happens again on Wednesday at 7 o'clock. Should be a good game. Need a bounce back game for Michigan State, and I truly think they get that. So thank you for tuning in, and tune in to the next episode.